Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Small Talk.
Small Talk.
This is the one where we get to have a cuppa and chill.
Really nice now that it's cold.
Yeah, yeah, it is cold. Look, we've got Ugg boots on.
Colder.
Oh, can you see my Ugg boots?
Cooler.
Maggie's got Ugg boots on. That's a very Australian
you can't really
thing.
see them very
Ugg
well.
boots.
There you go.
Fashion, so fashionable. But today we are going to be answering some questions as usual about us, about games, and then we will be talking through some small box games. So yeah, why don't we kick things off with the questions?
Ooh.
Okay, this one has been a long time coming because I've been asked it by several people, but it kind of hasn't felt right to have the discussion. But I think, you know, now that it's wintry, I think people might like to hear us reflect on how we met.
Oh, how we met.
Yeah, blast from the past. So we've been together for almost 10 years. So way back when we were in our early 20s. Well,
we were young.
Late 20s. Let's be honest, we're pretty old. Late 20s.
Yes. So how did we meet?
How did we meet? Okay, well, look, it's a bit of an interesting story, so settle in. But the lame part of the story is that the context. We met at a club.
Yeah, not that exciting.
We met at a club, which is weird because neither of us are big clubbers. But at the time, I was nursing a heartbreak. I just had my heart broken. And my sister and my best friend thought that they would cheer me up by taking me to this event that was happening. There was this lesbian nightclub event happening. It was taking over a club in my suburb. So we were like, let's go and check it out. You were also there.
I was also there. That's how we actually
Otherwise,
met.
this would be a weird story.
But actually, I went because I had made. This is around the time where I was DJing. So I went through a DJing stint. Fun fact. I wasn't DJing that night.
Maggie goes through a different hobby every month.
I do go through a lot of hobbies.
Be a surprise to no one.
I burned through them. I pick something that I'm like, ooh, this is interesting. And then I go all in, and then I kind of get over it once I feel like, oh yeah, I kind of get the sense of how that works.
Let's hope she stays interested in board games.
Well, so far it's been how many years?
Yeah, it's been a while.
And it's still going strong. So, you know, probably because there's so much variety.
Anyway, back to the story.
So I digress. So yes, I had friends, like we actually had friends in common and we didn't really know this, but they had told me, hey, you know, there's this night. Do you want to come and check it out? I'm like, yeah, okay, sure. I was kind of sort of like dating at the time, looking for like expanding my group of friends and went to this
what
evening.
You do when you're in your 20s, full of life.
Yeah, I was single, you know, ready to mingle. And also, you know, it was research because I had to go and check out these events to check out the DJ sets that other DJs were putting on.
So anyway, I was dancing with my sister, with my friend, you know, just like having some drinks, having a good dance. And then there was this couple there, and this couple that were like quite a bit older than us, and they were just lovely, but they were so drunk. So drunk. They were just kind of crazy drunk. And they were dancing with me, and they said, do you have a girlfriend? And we're just making conversation. And I said, no. And they were like, no, well, we're going to find you a wife. And they ran off. And then I didn't think anything of it. I just kept dancing, really. But then they came back with Maggie.
So my side of the story was I get this, only one of them approached me and said, hey, like sort of dancing. And I thought this woman is actually coming on to me. And I'm like, oh, you know, I'm just kind of just dancing, doing my thing. And then she's like, hey, I just want to tell you, my friend thinks you're really cute. I'm like, who's your friend? And so they were pointing at Amy. And I'm like,
I knew nothing.
And in the light and all of that, I thought like, you know, we were younger then, but I thought she looked almost like too young. I don't really like to go people, like I tend to kind of like older than me or anyways.
What you're trying to say is you're not a creep.
Well, yeah. So I was like, in the light, like she
really
looked very young. And so I was kind of divided because I was like, oh, you know, she looks far too young for me. But also, I don't want to break this poor girl's heart, this poor young girl's heart who's like sending out her friend to like suss out if maybe I'm interested. This is all that's going through my head. Obviously, I had no idea the background. So I'm like, okay, I'll go over and I'll just say hello. And then that way it's just kind of like, that's fine. And then just move on.
So we had this really weird conversation. You know when you're trying to talk in a club, but also the setup was all wrong because these people that I had never met before went to find Maggie and brought her over to me and I had no idea what was going on. And Maggie had been told that I was interested in her.
Yeah.
And so she came around. We were both just very confused by the whole situation.
Vibe.
And so we had this really awkward conversation where we couldn't even hear each other.
Yeah.
And then, and then we just kind of parted ways. And then at the end of the night, I thought, well, I better go over and say goodbye, because I'm very conscious of, talking to people and saying thank you for the chat.
I'll say, in the meantime, this other friend that we had in common that I didn't realize we had in common, I had sort of gone back in that area with her, and I said, oh, this funny thing happened, like someone just sent over, like how high school, because this it's like only like a high school thing of like, oh, my friend thinks you're cute, and it's like, who does that as adults? And I'm like, but clearly, like, she's so young. She's like, oh no, I know her, she's our age. I'm like, what? Like, yeah, she's like our age, or probably even older. No, it was like our age. And I was like, oh. Anyways, but then...
So this is, again, Maggie setting herself up so she doesn't sound like such a creep. When I was leaving, I said, I just wanted to say it was really nice to meet you. Maybe I'll see you around sometime, basically. And Maggie's like, maybe I'll see you around sometime on purpose, and we could, like, hang out.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay. And then she gave me her number. And then, long story short, this is a very long story now, but
very long story
I texted Maggie and I was like, look, I'm kind of going through a breakup, but it would be great to meet new friends.
But actually, I'll pause there, because then I'm still thinking that she has sent her friend over and that she's super into me. So I'm like, hey, let's catch up again. Let's have a friendly coffee. No kind of pressure, no stress of anything. And so I put my number in her phone and kind of sent her off in her way. And then the following day, I'm catching up with a friend. And I'm like telling him about like, oh yeah, I sort of met this girl, and she's really cute and blah, blah, blah. And I'm so overconfident. And as we're catching up, I get a text message from Amy, and I'm so confident that I decided I'm gonna read this message out loud, cold, without reading it first. So I'm like, oh, here we go. And I go, hi Maggie, you seem like a really nice girl. However, I was like, what is happening? It's like, however, I'm not really looking for anything at the moment. I'm just kind of, looking, if you're into it, like, happy to have another friend. I'm like, So I was like a bit deflated just because of the setup and like the expectation in my mind. And my friend at the time was like, well, but that's kind of like what you're into at the moment, isn't it? Like expanding your friendship group. I'm like, yeah, that's true. So that's how we ended up like going, okay, well, let's catch up for a coffee.
We did.
Genuinely just friendly coffee.
Yes, in a public place. Yeah. You always meet people in a public place during the day.
During the day.
So
breakfast, ideally.
We did that. And then coffee turned into a 5-hour extravaganza because Maggie was extremely talkative. I barely said a word, but also very captivating. And obviously, we hit it off. Look, here we are. Otherwise, it's a really long-winded way of telling Maggie that I'm not interested.
Otherwise, like it took 10 years
10
to
years
go,
later, and
I'm
a YouTube
still
channel.
just looking for a friend. Not really.
Anyway, that is the story. But the funny thing is that we have seen the drunk couple who originally said, I'm going to find you a wife.
Yeah.
Ran away and, found Maggie, brought us together, have no recollection of this whole entire night. And so we saw them afterwards and we're like, we're together now. Like, you did this. And they were like, who are you?
Yeah.
But we actually became quite good friends with them afterwards.
So I was calling them, they were our pawns of destiny. They were just there to
make it happen.
Yeah, bring us together, and then they had no recollection.
Yes.
Now we are pretty good friends.
Anyway, so that is our story.
That's how we met.
It's the lame story is we met at a club. The fun story is
everything that happened around
everything that happened and the people that brought us together.
Yeah.
So that is the personal question. I have a lot
very long-winded. Sorry, you probably heard our dog sneezing. He went through a bit of a sneezing.
He's having a sneezing fit. We have a dog named Boston, and he is a pug crossed with a Boston Terrier.
Yes.
And he's very overweight.
He's at the moment. We need to, I think because we've both been sick, and I usually walk him for like good long, at least 1 hour walk every day. And I wasn't doing that. We were only kind of doing just quickly around the block. He's pretty solid.
He's looking a bit solid at the moment. Yeah. It's the pug genes. He's working against the pug genes.
Yes.
Okay, so some game questions. So I've got a question from Sky about our favorite game components, or what components make a game feel particularly luxe or fancy.
Look, I love game components.
Yeah.
Is one of my absolute...
Oh, we did do a top 10. We did do a top 10 with Jazz from Lobby of Hobbies. Yes. So we'll link to that
somewhere.
But sorry. Yeah. Continue.
love components, love some deluxe components. Sometimes they don't even need to be deluxe. Like a good wooden meeple that's just like a funny or interesting shape. It's like we'll get me
a specific shape.
A specific shape,
fit for purpose shape.
Yeah. I find it hilarious when a shape is meant to be one thing, but then it kind of looks like something else. Like it's happened a couple of times with wooden meeples that it's like, this just looks rude.
Oh, I think it's meant to be phallic meeples.
Yes, that's exactly it. It's like, this is not looking like what I think they envisioned. Yeah. But I think favorite components, well, everyone knows I love metal coins. So metal coins are one big thing.
You do love metal coins.
I also love, we got the Honey Buzz wooden coins like sent to us, which are beautiful as well. Because I did love the cardboard coin, or their money is quite cute because it's in the shape of like acorns and leaves, but the wooden tokens are also quite nice.
I just like really unique things, unique to the theme. So if just something that really sets the scene, I really like that.
Yeah.
Like, but we spoke about Colt Express, the train, just because it sets the scene.
And very easy because it's just a cardboard. Like it's just made out of cardboard.
Just
so
cardboard.
It's
It
very
doesn't have to be too
resourceful.
fancy. I love a surprise dice tower. When you open the box and there's a dice tower that you have to put together, that's always lots of fun. But we just tend to go for the Euro components, like the wooden.
Yeah.
That's what we like.
Can I just say I'm really looking forward to, I was going to say I'm really looking forward to chai tea, the components, because I know what I've seen and Jazz talked about them.
Tea for two?
Yeah, well, he would have
had the original. He had the original.
Yeah. Just the deluxe components. Like they just look so amazing, and I just cannot wait. And I've been seeing everyone opening their chai tea for two, and looking, I was like, I cannot wait. Really great. And so
we do have a copy on the way, so we'll be talking about that. Yes. Neoprene mats, I really love. Maggie doesn't like them as much because then we have to store them somewhere.
I do love playing with them, but the storage is where I'm like, oh.
But I really like them even for a card game because they show you where to place the cards, and it gives it more gravitas, makes it feel more like a board game rather than just a card game.
And it's just more comfortable to play with them,
and to pick up the cards.
Stay put better, easier to pick things up.
Okay. Yeah. Richard asks, what game are we embarrassed we haven't played, or a true classic that we want to play but we haven't?
Lots.
Well, there are lots, but there's certainly one at the top of our list, which is Terraforming Mars.
Yes.
Which is just one that we haven't played and we know we need to at some point, but we don't we don't want to buy it. So it's just one of those games that the components doesn't draw us in, but also the theme. So a lot of space games actually. So there are a lot of space games that are classics that we've never played.
Yeah, there's also a lot of fantasy games that are classics that I'm like, I just cannot, like we're not really into fantasy, so I really struggle to get into that.
And because none of our friends have a board game library, we genuinely have to buy any game that we want to try playing.
We have to fully commit.
Yeah, and so it's hard. It's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard, but I'm looking forward to getting to some cons and forcing other people to teach us some games. Not forcing them, asking them nicely.
We've started playing with Stella from Maple University.
We have, yes.
And that was great because just in person, having someone teach you a game and just be able to get up and get going immediately. It's such a foreign concept to us because we're always the ones like having to learn, having to buy them, learn them, and teach them. And so it's just so easy. It is like you get to kind of learn so many so many new games in an evening that is like. So I'm really looking forward to doing more of that.
Doing more of that, yeah.
And
now that it's a bit safer
from Ludo Cherry.
Now that it's a bit safer here in Melbourne because we don't have any COVID, luckily.
Correct.
And the classic, actually, Richard mentioned that he wanted to try playing the game Go, and that has been on my list for ages. Because I love chess, and Go is a game that I do want to get into.
Very abstract, incredibly abstract. However,
you're going to hate it.
Well, I watched the documentary. I think it's called AlphaGo, which is available for free on YouTube. So I would highly recommend checking it out. And even though it's a very, very abstract game, all the talk about like all the psychology behind it and how much you can kind of see the type of person you are based on how you approach that game, which I think you could probably say about any game, but particularly with this game, it made me really curious about it. Even though there's going to be no theme, but yeah, I think I'm keen to try it.
We'll have to try that.
Yeah.
Okay. Abby B asks, if you could have a designer build your ideal game, what would the theme, mechanics, B.
I feel like we've had this question before.
We've had a slight variation on this question.
I love this question, so I never
But
tire
who
of
would
it.
design it? I think that's an interesting question.
Ooh, that is tricky. So what were the questions? So it's, well, who would design it and what's the favorite mechanic?
Theme and mechanics. I mean, mechanics-wise, pretty straightforward. For me, it'd probably have a rondelle, but also it would probably worker placement for us.
Yes, I feel like it would have to have some element of worker placement. I really, really am enjoying deck building and deck management. So if there's an element of that, and if I had to pick a designer, I think I would go Uwe.
Of course you would go Uwe. I like how you pretended to
Rosenberg.
think about that for a second.
Or
Mine would definitely be one of the Italians, like a Brasini or a Gigli, Virginio.
you know the other designer that I'm keen to see what he does next is Dan. After my obsession with Obsession,
Dan Halligan.
Yeah. So I would be keen to.
Well, you know, it would be
see what-
thematic if he had
Exactly.
to go with it. Yeah.
I know that it would have a lot of thought into it, a lot of research. It'd be immersively thematic, and yeah. So I'd be keen.
I just find all of the Italian duos that come together on games, they always have, I don't know, it's something to do for me mechanically about the tightness or how punishing the game is. That's what really gets me with a game. I like a nice kind of tight game.
It's a great question.
Yeah, good question. Thematically, I think it would just be anything that's not space,
Not space.
not fantasy, not
battle.
not battling. So good luck, good luck, everybody.
Anything else? Though?
Anything else?
Anything else?
Any like taking a mundane thing and making a whole game out of it is generally what we enjoy.
Yeah, I really like just themes that make me feel warm and cozy. So I think anything. That's why I tend to kind of love the farm stuff, even though it's fairly overdone.
It's a bit overdone now.
But something around that genre or area. Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna get your name wrong. I'm so sorry, but I think it's Dahaka Moonshine. Is the username, and Australian. He's Australian, and asks about music while playing.
Oh yeah, it's a good question. Well, it depends. Sometimes we rarely have music that goes with the game, even though that can be really good and fun, particularly like when we were playing Betrayal Legacy, having that setting the mood, which again is not really a type of game, but we really enjoyed it, I think, because of that whole ambiance.
But generally speaking, sometimes we have a bit of pop music going on in the background.
Yeah, it's more just.
But
like
Maggie gets quite distracted,
listening.
so usually we only do that if we all understand the game and we're not like no one's doing a teach or no one's learning that round because it does get quite distracting. So
I tend to go for words, like I'm very auditory. So I cannot, if there's music with lyrics, I cannot not listen to the lyrics. Whereas that's again another thing that we're very
completely different.
Like,
won't even
you'll be
notice the lyrics.
singing along to the lyrics, and I'm like, "Do you realize what that song is about?" And you're like, "I have no idea." Like you're literally saying the words and not,
And I can
Whereas
work all day with
yeah.
music. Actually, it helps me to have music going to focus on my writing.
Yeah.
Whereas you couldn't do that because
So if I'm playing the game and there's music, I'm going to be singing along, and that's going to get very annoying.
It is really annoying if we have music on the TV, like with video clips. Maggie will just be staring at the TV and completely ignoring the game. So we don't do that. Aaron asked what mechanics we don't enjoy.
Mechanics that we don't enjoy. That's a good question.
I think maybe a bit of bidding or like kind of bidding and hidden stuff.
I don't like bluffing. I really dislike bluffing because again, like I get that sort of like social anxiety thing of like, I just don't. And for the same reason, I don't tend to like, I don't know if this is a mechanic, but like storytelling type games where you have to craft a story and like a narrative and a thing, which is weird as a themer. I love kind of going on a journey, but not having to be the one creating the journey on the spot for everybody else at the table. Yeah.
Mechanically, what else don't we really love? I think like when there's negotiation because of that thing where people perceive that I win a lot and so they don't trade with me, and that doesn't make for a very fun game experience. So I probably like an even playing field more than something that depends too much on like that negotiation.
The other thing is asymmetric powers. We don't
Yes.
tend to love when there's like I think we as you were saying that even playing field.
I really like a resource card, like a different starting resource card or something that kicks you off in a game that gives you a particular strategy. I like that, but I don't really like an ongoing asymmetric ability that's too different. However, we are about to learn Root, and I feel like I've been playing it on the app, and I feel like
same with Oath,
yeah, we could like maybe get into it from that perspective, and they are completely asymmetric, even the way that you win. So okay, next one, one last one. This is a full video of questions. How do we decide first player? Asked Jason from Sydney, Australia.
Oh, another Australian. First player. Sometimes we'll go by whatever the rule book suggests. It's often like whoever was the last person to do whatever that relates to the game. So sometimes we'll do that. Often it'll just be...
I have to say, it's pretty random at our house.
It really is.
It's like we're not bothered too much by it.
No.
Until it's a game where you know that going first really matters. And then that tends to be either the person who won or the person who came last. But we try and like mix it up. So if you were first player last time, you're not first player again. So
or if we have a lot of new players, we'll have someone that is the more experienced players go first, so that the newbies get to see the round, or like multiple people take a turn,
so they go last.
So that they have a bit of an idea. It's more like a mini demo of the round.
That's right. And sometimes if we have a new game, we always try and use the rule book, like how to determine first player.
Yeah.
Like if it's a little jokey question, or the last person to do X, we use that. But you only really do that on the first turn, because then it's kind of redundant. Anyway, with the same group it is. Anyway, that is all the questions. Let's talk about some games.
So what do we have on the pile this week?
Guess what finally arrived?
Well, partly.
Yeah, well, partly.
Some button shy games.
But interestingly, these ones turned up before the previous Kickstarter that I backed. So we've got Food Chain Island and Ugly Gryphon in. But I've also backed the Sprawlopolis expansion, which now complete Agropolis, as well as I think Tussie Mussy is coming, and Circle the Wagons is coming. So we've got some real classics that we've never tried, but now we've got these newer Scott Arms solo little games.
So let's talk about them. So Ugly Gryphon Inn, out of these two, probably this one was my favorite. In the Ugly Gryphon Inn, you are managing an inn, a pub. Is it the same? Okay, it's kind of like pub. It's like a tavern along with accommodation, which is like an inn. And there's the balance between this, the things that the people that are staying don't like. What is it that they call it? I can't remember what the name is. But it's the thing that they triggers them that they don't like, and it'll make them
peeves.
It'll make them leave in a bad state that causes usually some other damage. So you're trying to get to the point where you get, I believe it's 8 guests in your inn, and managing, making sure like some of them don't like noise or smells or confrontations and fights, and all of this sort of stuff is happening in the inn. This is like, I enjoyed this one quite a bit. I found it really tricky. It's really difficult. I won, like one of the earlier games that I played, I won it, and I was like, maybe this is not that hard. But then I haven't been able to win any subsequent games after that.
And mechanically it's interesting because each card actually has like a kind of like a power or something that you need to activate. And you're kind of drafting them from the pub into the inn. And as Maggie mentioned, you're trying to get a number of people in the inn. But what also happens each round is everyone who's staying in the inn triggers their kind of ability in sequence. And some of them may not want to have certain symbols on player cards there, which means that you lose people out of your inn. There's all these different things that kind of are taking people in and out, which makes that...
It's a literal cascade, and it causes a flow-on effect.
It does. So you got to be really careful about who you bring in and kind of aware of what's happening. But also in the pub elements, as soon as you've got 3 of the same symbol there, it triggers some effects that also get rid of people in your inn. So there's just like a lot of kind of interrelatedness between the cards, which makes it really cute and interesting.
And I love the artwork in it.
The artwork is fabulous. It's kind of funny as well. I like the nun who doesn't like any of the...
Just silently leaves judging everybody.
Silently leaves judging.
It's like, it's cute.
And doesn't like any noise. The other game is Food Chain Island. Our Food Chain Island is Beautifully illustrated. I really, really enjoy the illustrations because they're all animals eating a smaller animal, and it's really amusing to me. But it's mechanically, it's very similar to those illustrations in that each card can only eat cards that are lower than it, so up to 3 points lower. And you're trying to create this food chain or cascading chain of consumption through the food chain to end up with as few cards as you can, ideally none, just one stack of cards. And as you're consuming the other animals, you're stacking it up and getting rid of cards in your player area. And as you do that, every time an animal eats another animal, it has an ability, and that allows you to somehow break the game or force you to do something in a certain way for your next turn. You also have two, like a shark and a whale, I think, and they allow you to do a one-off ability in the game to help you along. But it's really, really hard.
So difficult,
and I was joking in our little membership community that Maggie was sick, and that was the first time I think I've ever sat down and played a solo game by myself. I mean, the rules overhead was quite small, and so
low barrier to entry.
But I really actually enjoyed both of these games playing solo. They're great little challenges. I can totally appreciate why everybody loves button shy games. You can carry it around with you. I really enjoy it. I actually preferred Food Chain Island, but I've only beaten it once. I find it really difficult, and I really enjoyed both games. So those are Food Chain Island and
Ugly Gryphon Inn. All right, next game.
Next game is Fluttering Souls.
Fluttering Souls. This is an interesting game because the story behind it, from a thematic point, is quite beautiful and heartbreaking. It sort of tells this story of this man who falls in love with this woman, and then I believe before they're about to get married, she passes away, and then he's just devastated. So he, I can't remember. So he ends up. So every day he's visiting, like he visits her grave and to bring flowers and kind of keep it clean. And then eventually, after years, like he falls ill, and a white butterfly comes and lands on his shoulder, or like comes to his deathbed. And so there was this, I believe it's based on an urban legend or a myth that this actually happened. And then,
Japanese.
And so the idea was that the spirit of the beloved, his beloved, realized that the reason he hadn't come to the grave that day was because he was unwell, and so the white butterfly came to spend the time with him. And so apparently the family members were trying to shoo it away, and it wouldn't leave his side. So it was like, oh, it's so beautiful. And then when he passed away, I think like the butterfly eventually kind of like they all went together. And so this whole concept of the white butterfly is the soul of a beloved kind of coming back to visit. Which is really beautiful.
And then you've got a game that's all about hate drafting.
But so the game itself, the winning, like when you win a white butterfly, and it's whoever gets to 3 white butterflies. There's nothing in terms of that story that I just told in the game. In the game, you just have collections of butterflies.
The game is super simple.
Very simple. Very quick and easy to learn, easy to teach. You've got what do you call that? It's kind of like in Seven Wonders Duel and in Unforgiven, which we covered recently, where you're laying out the cards in different. And they're kind of covering one another. I don't know what that's actually called, but you can only access the cards that are completely unblocked. And so you're drafting. Is it drafting? Like you're kind of picking butterflies.
Drafting, you have to draft one.
You have to draft one, and then there's one butterfly that you can use to...
The great egg fly.
Yeah, the great egg fly that you can use to kind of block, and it doesn't have any points at the end. It's just really to annoy things along the way. So that actually, that acts for all of that. That adds all of the element of fun and hilarity in the game.
It's set collection, so some cards are not going to score you anything unless you've got a set of 2 or 3 or whatever you need. So you're just trying to frustrate your opponent. It's a 2-player game only, we should say.
Yes,
You're just
head to
trying to
head.
frustrate your opponent's plans by putting that great egg fly kind of blocker butterfly out, meaning that they have to take it instead of a card that they actually want. And it really is so quick and easy because all you're doing is taking a card and then counting up the points at the end. Maybe like a little too simple for me to want to kind of get out, but I actually really enjoy beating you at it.
Well, she beats me at everything pretty much, but it's.
But this one was pretty funny when we were.
It's a good, and
drafting.
I enjoyed. Because as I was learning it, I was kind of like two-handed playing it solo. It doesn't play solo, but obviously you can kind of two-handed, which makes not a lot of sense with this game. But then when we played together, that's when I realized the joy of the bloody card with the So it is quite quick. It is quite easy to play. And I enjoyed it
really fast. So if you're looking for like just a fast little filler that doesn't require any brain power really.
No brain power, no heavy strategy, no like brain burn.
And as soon as we finished a game, we were just like again because it's just so 15 quick. Minutes done. Fluttering Souls.
Fluttering Souls.
Now the next game is a classic game by Reina Knizia called Battle Line, and if you can see this cover, this is the medieval reskin or retheming that actually only came out in 2017, but the original Battle Line game is from 2000, and some people might know this game as Shot and Totten because I believe those games are all very similar to each other. They might have a couple of cards that are different, but the underlying premise is the same. I will say that Shot and Totten is probably the game that I ideally wanted to buy because I think we would enjoy the theme a lot more than Battle Line. This is just like not really our thing. But I did see this. I picked it up, I think, on sale, and I knew we had to try it because it's a classic game, and I can 100% appreciate why so many people do love this game and why it's been so popular and why Shot and Totten is so popular.
It's very clever.
It is really clever. So what you've got in front of you is 9 battlefields, and on those 9 battlefields, you're just trying to win dominance. And the way that you win dominance across them is to play cards of a certain suit and number. Just like you would try and make, a run in poker, like a straight or a flush, or 3 of a kind. You're trying to have a more powerful run underneath the battlefield, and then you will win that battlefield. And the winner will be the person who has 5 battlefields or 3 in a row. And in this game, you also get to play other cards that are like action cards. So you can either play a regular suit card or an action card. But what I really love is that the game constrains you in that you can't play these powerful action cards. You can't play more than one more than your opponent has played. So it's a 2-player game only, and you're constantly watching to see how many have they played and leveraged so that I can play another one. The other thing is that when we first played, I was like, oh yeah, that game's okay. Like, it was all right. And then we played it another time and I was like, oh yeah, okay, now it feels a bit more like we know what we're doing and it's getting harder. And then I introduced another friend to it and he's very competitive. And when we were playing together, I really started to realize like how you manipulate what they know about what's in your hand, because instead of like just filling one battlefield, you're kind of spreading yourself a little thin and not giving away, where you're going, or allowing yourself the opportunity to kind of shift and change what you're going to do with each of your 9 stacks of cards, essentially. Really clever. I really enjoy it.
I really enjoyed it. It's not the type of game that I would play or that I would choose to play time and time again, because it is very much head to head. I win, you lose, and I'm either frustrating your plans or that sort of stuff.
You're also not super into trick taking or any game that involves like a deck of cards.
I really appreciated the design of it. Like, it actually it's very simple, very easy to understand, and then it is quite exciting when you're like, ooh, I think I've got you. But then, because the cards are unique in terms of like the number and the suit, then if someone's going for 3 of a kind, and I know that I've got that card in my hand, it's like, well, they're not gonna, and I can see everything else that's out already on the table. But then those other cards that kind of disrupt the game or upset the game, that's what got me. I was like, but
it's good.
Yeah,
it's good, and it's really fast and easy to teach as well.
Very quick. Yeah.
And there's a great little reference card that shows you the ranking of the different combinations of cards. Really like this one.
Yeah,
I can see why people love it. So that's Battle Line. The next one.
All right, the next one is actually a Kickstarter
Coming
preview.
to Kickstarter.
Yeah, coming to Kickstarter. Lost Empires: War for the New Sun. So this one is interesting because it's going to be by Colossal Games. Keep an eye out for the Kickstarter campaign.
It's later this month, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, it's going to be in April, I believe. So with this one, it's interesting because it takes place in a future where, again, we've destroyed Earth and we have to find a way to get out of here and get to this other planet where we can hopefully survive. So this planet still has kind of resources. We can kind of move our people there. We need to build a wormhole to transport our factions. So we're all playing as different factions. I should say it's a 2-player only game, so it's head-to-head. And so they've created these 4 different factions, and they're asymmetric. I was very impressed with the level of work that went into all the different cards that are part of each faction, the design, so the artwork that's gone into all of the cards.
Mechanically, what you're doing is you have your own battlefield, but then there are 3 objectives, they're called, aren't they?
Yes, so there's the central objective and then the side kind of areas.
Objectives, but basically they're all different areas where you can deploy different people, machinery, different cards that you have into these areas to build up your clout in those areas, because ultimately it's going to be both a battle zone, so you can fight each other in these different areas, and fighting involves rolling dice to work out, reconcile kind of who has the most power, who has how much defense, and then ultimately who wins the battle. So you can remove other people's cards, your opponent's cards. But the other thing is that it's an area control game, so at the end of each round, whoever has the majority of control in each of those areas is going to score points that will ultimately...
artifacts. You're gaining artifacts.
I knew you were going to correct me with the thematic term.
That then you can lead to building gates, that then you can lead to building your wormhole to bring your faction over.
Sure. So points. So 4 points, that equals another point, and 4 of those points equals a win.
Disapproving face. Yes.
But so it is there's a lot of, if you watch our channel, I don't think we own a single other game. Well, we don't own this game as a prototype, but we don't have a game in our collection where you have to roll dice
for attack.
It's just not our style of game. So please take our opinions of this one absolutely with a grain of salt, because because we wanted to try it out, and we're excited for what they're doing, but the game itself is probably not our style.
Yeah, so because it's mostly, and this is an interesting timing, because again, from that OmniGamer thing of us kind of, let's try different things, let's try and see, it was interesting because it came at a time where I'm becoming really fascinated with with things like Magic the Gathering, and how, again, I've never really been into fantasy, still not really into fantasy or Magic, but looking into it, I remember from the 90s, looking at the cards and being just so taken with the artwork of the cards. And now that obviously I'm a lot more into games and understanding mechanics, kind of looking at what is the mechanic? How does it work? And sort of been immersing myself a little bit in that world and going, this is actually really elegantly simple in the way that runs. And this reminded me a lot of it, because you are essentially deploying, not summoning, but you're deploying your troops, you're paying for that, and then you're kind of turning, not really tapping cards, or turning cards as you're activating them. And again, it's that sort of, you're not trying to kill the other person, you're just trying to be the first to get all those artifacts through that control and all that sort of stuff to reach the end conditions. So so this is a really interesting one for if you're into any of those kinds of games. Definitely check
out the Kickstarter. We don't know much about the campaign, but it's obviously they put a lot of thought in it. They're still working on it too, so they're still very open to feedback as things are evolving. But do check out the campaign. I will say that even though it wasn't our style, and certainly I could feel that when we were playing, just the rolling, all of that kind of thing wasn't really for me, but I really enjoyed beating Maggie.
She always does.
I always do, but there was some
the format.
There was some devastating losses with this one.
I was destroyed beyond comprehension.
And that made me interested myself in Magic the Gathering. Like, wow, maybe I'd actually be
I'll tell
pretty
you
good
why
at this.
with this one, because this was another lesson again, because because it's not our type of game. Usually, I don't know what I don't know. So it wasn't until I had gone through, devastating losses that I was like, let me have another look at these asymmetric factions. And then I realized if I'm playing with a faction that's not meant to be like attack heavy or combat heavy, no wonder I was getting nowhere.
Yes.
Like that faction was meant to really be trying to dominate in a different area, like in a different way, like just trying to get a lot more of that control. There's one faction that's all about healing. And so it's more about like preserving life and just constantly healing up your own troops so that you can kind of stay there and get that control. So really interesting from that point of view, the thought that has gone into how these factions work, all the individual cards, and all of that with really nice, like beautiful artwork. I'm not going to say beautiful, like stunning, and a lot of unique artwork as well.
As Lost Empires.
Lost Empires.
Oh, what's the second bit of the title? War for the New Sun.
War for the New Sun. Yeah, because remember, we've destroyed Earth.
Of course we have.
Of course we have.
Well, we have. Anyway, the last little game is another roll and write. We've been on a little roll and write
We have
resurgence.
exploration.
Well, a resurgence, I would say, because we were really into them for a while, then they kind of
true.
disappeared, and now it feels like there's a whole other wave of them.
That's true, yeah.
But anyway, this one is SuperSkill Pinball 4K, and a lot of people are big fans of this game, and we're a little late to the party on this one.
We only just got it recently.
Yeah, we got it recently, and we've been having a lot of fun with this game. It's an interesting one because you can choose the pinball machine that you want to use, and you take two different pieces of erasable card, I guess. Yep. And you've
one's
got
your main machine, and the other one's the back glass. So just like a pinball.
And that makes sense. And you've got a whiteboard marker, and you are rolling dice, and then each choosing one of the dice to use as movement for your ball.
Yeah.
And what I love about the components is the half round ball
that's pretty cute.
that sits on the board and looks just like a pinball. That's one thing I really love. The other thing I really love about this game is the way that your ball moves through the machine, because you always move down as gravity pulls the ball down, obviously, but the way that it kind of pings back up, the way that you use the flippers to hit it back up if you've got the right numbers so you don't lose your ball, but then the way it bounces around the bumpers and everything is so reminiscent of a pinball machine. It's very, very clever. And I was never good at pinball machines. I always loved looking at them.
Me neither.
Loved playing them, but I was never like great at them.
It's a waste of money for me. It's like very short amount of amusement time. It's like, gone.
I never could kind of keep up with what I was doing. There's too much going on.
Yeah, same.
But I really, really enjoyed kind of recreating that in a roll and write sense. I think it's really clever. It's by Jeff Engelstein, who does the game tech. Some people might be familiar with his little segment that he does on the Dice Tower podcast. Also, Ludology podcast, which is really fascinating if you're listening to how the kind of the science behind games.
Game
and
design,
so not surprising that he's come up with this roll and write game that is incredibly clever in the way that it works mechanically.
Yeah, I like that with the different tables, it's not just different themes, like the difficulty varies with the different table setups that you can have. I agree. I like how well it was able to replicate the experience of an actual pinball machine. I did find with it, sometimes it felt like it went on like a little bit long. I was really looking forward to this game, and I appreciate it from all the clever elements of how it's mimicked the real life thing. But I think from an enjoyment point of view, I enjoy it, but I almost wish it was a bit like shorter or tighter in the way that it played. I think it would make me want to go, again. Because sometimes some of the games lasted quite a while. Like if you're having a good run with those like balls and making sure that you're not losing them.
Especially the harder difficulty ones were much longer. The lightest one, Carnival, still takes quite a while. Like for the amount of thinking and strategy that goes into it, maybe like there are other roll and writes that I would play before this one, because by the time I get up to the most difficult level, I'd probably be taking out Hadrian's Wall, like, let's be honest, if we were playing a roll and write.
I agree,
But what draws people in, and what will probably keep this in our collection, is that it's so accessible as a theme.
Yes.
We had this just sitting on our table, and we had visitors over, and as they were kind of coming in and out of the house, they're like, oh, are we going to play that? Like,
I felt so
pinball.
mean because we ended up not playing it that night because we kind of had a bit of a hidden agenda. We wanted to play other stuff.
We had other games
we had
to
4
play.
players, but they were like, oh, like they were really kind of longingly looking at it. So
yes. So actually, no, we hadn't learnt it at that point as well. So it would have been one of those horrible game nights.
I could have taught. But again, if it was one of those, like if it was a little bit shorter, I guess you could just go, we'll only play 1 ball, or we'll only play, 1 or 2 balls. But I think it's very, very clever the way it's been developed and created. So definitely, if you haven't,
if you're into roll and writes, if you're into pinball, definitely check this one out.
Definitely, yes.
Yeah, because you'll just be really chuffed at how similar it is.
Yeah, I feel like I understood, or I think I'm understanding pinball machines a little bit better after
playing this,
because I had no idea. When I'm playing, it's just like things are lighting up, and it's like that seems like a good thing maybe, and then there's like multi-ball. And
multi-ball is the most fun.
Multi-ball
I'm
is
so
good
glad
with
they
this,
added multi-ball, where you do actually have 2 balls then going through your pinball machine. It's really cool.
Yeah.
Anyway, that is our SuperSkill pinball. So that is everything for this wintry day in Melbourne.
Yes.
And just wanted to say thank you everyone for your support. Thanks for watching videos like this.
Yes,
When we started Small Talk, we didn't think that people would want to listen to us ramble on for 50 minutes or so.
My goodness.
But yeah, it's just so wonderful, the support that we've had, and through the channel membership as well. Thank you to all of the Joeys out there. And we really just are having a lot of fun, and are loving meeting and chatting to you all. And hopefully one day we can meet at a con somewhere.
I am counting the days to when we can do things like this again.
Yes. Yeah. If you have any more questions for us for next Small Talk, please drop them in the comments. As you can see, we do try and incorporate as many of them as possible.
Yeah.
But otherwise, we'll see you soon with more game reviews. So bye for now.
Bye.